Hello and welcome to the Car Motivators Roundtable. Today's automotive leadership panel consists of a real who's happening in automotive. In alphabetical order, our guests are Sean Kelly of Car Motivators, Reed Richards of Car Motivators, Paul Sansone Jr., you know him from Sansone Jr.'s 66 Auto Mall and Tier 4 Marketing, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And of course, Steve Zabawa of the Rimrock Auto Group and WebBuy. We'll talk about that as well. Welcome, gentlemen.
Welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
A pleasure. Thanks for gathering. Well, today's topic is regarding the state of the retail automotive sector based on current events. Life is highly unpredictable and the changes are coming fast and furious. Experts are no longer more insightful than gypsies, and crystal balls are no more transparent than bowling balls. I don't think anyone could have predicted a banner year for auto sales during a pandemic, but there you have it, right? So with that said, let's talk about COVID. Let's talk about what our car dealers did to handle the situation accordingly.
Well, first thing I really think we did a fantastic job with focusing on my employees first. How do we navigate through COVID? There was a point in time where we had to completely shut down our operation, bring people back. We did it almost by consensus, who could stay out the longest without the least amount of pain, who needed to come back quickly. So I think we focused on the employees first and got my dealership operational very, very smoothly relative to what I was available to do at that time. Like many others, we had been dabbling in the digital retailing space and everything else. So we had already had an infrastructure, but never a lot of adoption. And the COVID certainly sped up the adoption on both the consumer end and the dealership end. So we were there, and COVID accelerated everyone's adoption to digital retailing. So it made it relatively smooth, to be honest with you.
What's interesting is that so many people said it was so far off in the future, digital retailing. And sure enough, it was right in our kisser. And of course, Steve already had invested in WebBuy. He had already built out a solution. Steve, how did you handle COVID?
Well, from a auto group standpoint, very similar to Paul, except for we're in the wild, wild west, and we didn't have to wear as many masks, and people weren't closing our stores down or anything. So they felt that we were essential, but we were very protective of the customer, clean things up. But we did a lot more digitally with the customer, we really did. And just from a standpoint on WebBuy, we'd been working on the product at that time about 7 years. So we were far longer as far as actually being able to do an end-to-end deal without a human involved. And that's kind of separates us from most of the other products that are out there. If you're looking for a communication tool and you're looking to actually be able to allow that consumer, like an Amazon Prime experience, to be actually able to do it without a human popping up, that's what we supplied. And our sales went right through the roof as far as dealerships calling us from Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, all the different places immediately, because they were shut down. They had armed guards at the front door and not letting people into the stores. I mean, it was crazy. So very, very thankful. I spent the time, in 2012, I saw my kids grabbing all these brown boxes off the front steps. I said, "Now, what's going on here?" And I said, "Why can't we do that with a car?" And two thumbs, right? And then I didn't understand how they were buying it at that time, because I didn't do many things digitally myself, being a car dealer. I want people to come down to my showroom, get excited about the car, negotiate everything and control everything, being a control freak like I am. So to be able to allow a consumer, freedom, and be able to use their two thumbs and do their research and pricing and everything online is kind of unheard of at that time. So, but now it's not. If you look at it, there's a lot of people, at least a third of the dealers, that are doing it that way right now, and have a tool on their site that can pretty much do it. So digital retail has come a long ways in a very short period of time here.
Well, if you just look at the information, just information alone, how far a consumer goes in the process is up to the consumer. But Obviously, Steve and I know, 10 years ago, if you gave a price out over the phone, people were fired. Now, you go completely the other end of the spectrum, where if you're not giving the information, you're not even getting an opportunity to transact with that customer. So I think on the dealer side of it, the freedom of it, us being more transparent, giving the information, was much more comfortable than ever before. I think that was the biggest thing that was transformational as far as what we do at a dealership. I always believed in it, but the old line, your best negotiating tool is your presence. That all went out the window with COVID, and we found that buyers aren't liars. Buyers want information, and we are able to give them that information in a comfortable environment and somewhat negotiate digitally, but without giving the information, you weren't even engaging with the customer. So that was a big thing on our end, where I felt completely different in attitude from BDC on out. And Sean knows, I actually had one of my managers in the BDC. The sales manager, they weren't a BDC manager. They were just basically desking deals, working with the BDC department, just to have an effective level of engagement with the price points.
Yeah.
Now, Steve, I recall in an early adoption phase, you were actually selling, you were almost at double digits, were you not, for a while there? And I also remember a conversation with the web buy, concerning web buy, where people would only get as far as the valuation tool and they'd close. So they didn't even go from A to Z, they go from A to M, and there they were, yeah?
That's correct. Yeah. Now they can, if you just go up to our version 2 of web buy, which is 15 times faster, and all the little Achilles heel, when you build something the first time, you get a chance to redo it, right? So we spent a whole year bringing Spanish into it. A lot of people are Spanish, so just sold a Chevrolet store out in Victorville, California. 60% of his market is Spanish.
Yeah.
And now the digital retailing tool is designed for that. But being quick, efficient, and easy to use. The most difficult thing in building software that I found over the last 15 years is taking a very complicated transaction in 50 different states and thousands of municipalities, and with 30 different OEMs and all the different residuals and rates and rebates, and making it simple for the consumer. Okay. Because you don't know if you got an 18-year-old on there, first time buyer, or a 65-year-old that's bought 25 cars. And maybe even that person may not be digitally savvy. So you got to make all your buttons easy to hit and look really nice and clean. And they actually have to add up to the penny. And that's what most of the digital retailing tools fall short. They don't have the control center in the back end of the tool to allow that dealer in New Jersey or wherever they're at to dial it to the penny. Because a lot of dealers, they don't even follow the rules. They do it their way. And so your software, even though you're following the rules of the state or whatever, the dealer in Chicago may not want to do that. We've been doing it this way forever, and I want the software to work that way. So we've been able to mold our software to how the dealer wants to do their business. And if they're an auto group, maybe 5 different stores, they maybe have 5 different general managers doing it all different ways. So now you still have to be able to do it that way. So it's been quite the learning curve for me over the last 3-4 years as we've implemented these, installations everywhere across the country, and to see what you have to do to get it really truly right. And that's what the dealer's looking for now, because they're starting. This is a big thing in our space, is that the Pauls and the Steves and the auto group guys that have stores, they've had a lot of different digital retailing tools on there, either jammed down their throats by the manufacturer, or ones that they've chose by one of their software providers, right? Or someone where they did their research and they chose that company. Well, now they know if it actually works or doesn't. Does it convert? Does it close? Does it take in the trade-ins at a high rate? Does it get the credit apps bought, through Route 1 or DealerTrack? And does it sell a lot of product on the back end and accessories? So now the dealers are starting to actually get the numbers from Shift Digital, Auto Data, and these other companies that are the gatekeepers for the manufacturers. And there's a big difference between products. So, but they don't know that yet, but they're learning it quickly.
Now, Sean and Reed, you work with multiple dealerships. What worked and where did you see some struggle?
Yeah, I feel like as a team of executive coaches and consultants that car motivators that we were really lucky and blessed to have awesome dealer partners, and we retained almost every single one of them through the pandemic. And we found ourselves able to help our dealers navigate some of those changes. And it was a blessing to be a part of the shifts and adaptations that had to be made, and be with them every step of the way. And I think what both Paul and Steve are talking about was crucial, right? It was making a much faster adaptation and creating flexibility throughout your sales process. Number one, that was certainly big to be able. I mean, I remember some of those discussions where we were teaching the sales team a brand new sales process around digital retailing and how to present numbers over the internet, and teaching the BDC manager to be able to desk deals, and the massive influx of leads from the East Coast that Steve was referring to, that was real. And not only did the volume of leads multiply, but generally speaking, staffing levels were pretty low. I thought one really big thing that came out of this was our dealers were bringing their personnel back to the stores. Generally speaking, in a pretty systematic way, you're going to start with your most effective sales consultants. And I think what we learned was that, dealers can be very successful with a leaner staff. We can sell as many cars or more when you have the right people on your staff. So to me, it really reinforced the fact that, having the right people on your team is better than having enough people on your team. And I thought, Paul's average before the pandemic, Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, but your team, they were about 18 sales per salesperson on average per month, right? And now I think the pandemic drove that up significantly into the mid-20s. Am I right?
Yeah, actually, yes, to the point where, I had always focused on salesman retention. And to me, the way to keep good salesmen is to help them earn more money. So that's always been my MO. And I just keep going back to how much easier is my life with a qualified salesman? How much easier is my manager's life to have a qualified salesman out there? So I always focused on productivity, but I focused on it from the bottom up through my salespeople, actually.
Yeah. And I think one thing that worked very well for the dealers that imparted this was, we talked about transparency on the customer side, but also on the personnel side. The dealers that were willing to, take a stand, like, hey, we're going to be in business, we're staying open, here's what we're doing, and then communicate that effectively to their entire team. I think that transparency goes a long way, because, I heard horror stories of dealers that had, PPP money, didn't explain to their team how that was being, used or distributed. And at the end of the day, that's the owner's right, to communicate what they want. But I found that the dealers that were communicated the process, the expectations, this is how we're going to manage our personnel, this is how we're going to bring people back to the showroom floor when they open back up. The better the transparency and communication, the more successful they were. So, I think those are some of the biggest strategies that helped our dealers succeed during the pandemic. And it's interesting how, it's not a pandemic now, but we have similar things we need to adapt to. I look forward to talking to you guys about that.
Reed, the Hulk or Ben in a fight?
I am sorry.
The Hulk or Ben in a fight?
Oh, well.
You can chime in whenever you want. Okay, thanks for the insight, Sean. Appreciate that. This is a jump ball question, and we're going to use some of our future vision. But gas prices are skyrocketing. It appears to be intentional based on current policies that created, I think we could all agree, an energy supply issue. Truth be told, inflation is probably at double digits. Oil prices are just out of control at this point. How are price increases across the board affecting your dealerships, and what strategies are you considering moving forward with, since both of you have demonstrated a very unique vision towards the future?
I'll let Paul start on that one.
Well, again, all of the challenges that you just mentioned are somewhat buffered by the supply and demand. If we had a lot of supply and we had these issues, we would be in a hell of a lot more difficulty than we are now. So we are fortunate that, in my opinion, that we're one car too few instead of several cars too many, because what is out there and buying today, and luckily again, because of supply, are a lot of need buyers. So the need buyers, unfortunately, need a car for whatever reasons. I don't know if Steve's experiencing this where he's at, but I've never sold so many customers their lease purchases, to such a high rate, because they normally are 3-year trade cycles, taking another car, leasing another car or whatever. These people, A, they don't have an alternative car. B, the car they're driving, they have significant amount of equity, and I'm buying it for 14 and it's worth 18. So why not buy it for 14? So today, again, we are very fortunate that, we have the margins are going to allow us to operate with less volume. And we're really just catering to the need buyer, whether it be need for credit, whether that be need, I don't have a car, whether that be, whatever we all define a need buyer versus a want buyer, because a guy or girl, a want buyer, I'll wait. I don't need to jump into the waters today. I like what I have. I'm not pressed to make a decision. So a lot of the ills that you talked about, we are, by natural supply and demand, able to overcome those normal challenges.
Yeah, it's exactly right, Kelly and Paul. To the penny. That's exactly how it is in Montana. I've never seen it like this. I mean, I don't have one Subaru on my lot right now at my Subaru store. Everything is pre-sold for the next 90 days. I mean, now we're going into 120 days right now as far as sales down the town. When COVID hit, I had about 30 cars out on the lot, which was about half of a month's supply. And then all of a sudden I didn't have that. Then I had 1 month of orders coming in, everything in transit was sold. And then all of a sudden now I'm doing 4 or 5 orders a day. So that's what's happening here. And then as far as the used cars, they're going off the lot at a good pace and for all the money. And I'm not taking a bath at auto auction. So I don't know if any of that stuff's going to soften this year, but so far I haven't seen any signs of it.
I've never made more money wholesaling cars, and that was never something that you wanted to do. I mean, but it's when I'm taking what I don't know, I'm getting off topic, but the fact of the matter is, the rental car companies are not being allocated cars from the manufacturer. So they're taking cars that are 10, 15,000 mile cars under 36,000 miles and paying more than full retail for them because it's an income generator for them. So if they're paying $2,000 more, that's okay, because they're generating significantly more income from it. So this whole cycle, I agree with you. I don't think we are going to see a change in that, at least for a year.
Yeah, I agree. For whatever reason, Subaru just can't get cars coming to us. General Motors can't get any more coming to us. Kia's been better and Hyundai's been better. Volkswagen's been steady, but nothing great. And that supply and demand has really worked in our favor. So when we, whatever amount of money we normally made at a dealership in 2020, for whatever reason, we doubled that. And then this last year, we went up another 100%. In the last year. I mean, it's been incredibly good to be a car dealer the last 2-3 years. So, and right now it's still trending that same way so far for the first quarter.
Sean and Reed chime in as coaches. How important is it to develop the human capital in a dealership to address the ever increasing costs and the product scarcity?
And I would like Reed to speak to the Reed, remember the inventory shortage really started ramping up, and we had that whole growth plan at one of our Chevy GM dealers here in St. Louis. Reed kind of headed that up and helped them begin to educate the consumer. Reed, would you share a little bit about that and the impact it had on their success? I think that's a big one.
Yeah, I think that Sean, you hit it right on the nail. Definitely Don Brown, took advantage of that. And I have to, give it to you, Sean, because, you're definitely the head of change. And, by providing them an alternative, message to the customer, how familiar are you with the current market situation? allowed the salesperson to open up the opportunity to take control of the conversation, which the customer needed, and direct it to giving them the options of being a one price store, ordering the vehicle, but first and foremost, creating that reason and the benefit in the mind of the customer for why they do want to come to the dealership instead of purchase online.
Yeah. Yeah. So can you, helping dealers, still, giving customers the option, right, to buy digitally, and also saying, hey, but if you come in, we'll work with you one-on-one and give you the time and we'll help you order, right? So the ability to set appointments, even when you don't have a car to show, is absolutely critical. And I think by teaching the salespeople to educate their consumers on the situation, because the customer's watching it on the news all day, right? They're seeing, used car values are up and inflation and gas prices, but what does that mean for them and how they buy a car? So if it was kind of like something they had to adapt quickly, right, Reed? Like how fast, how many hours of training did you have to get the entire sales team in that store to change their approach? Because how long did it take?
It's still taken today, but they are definitely poster children when it comes to be coming back to it a year later and doing it every Friday now that Amy's not along with us anymore. Dude, I'm super happy with the seeds that we planted and the message that they're providing the customer, and they're all selling more cars. Again, they're all, volume is for vanity, gross is for sanity. They're still selling more cars and they're still making a ton more money. Yeah. So I think the message is right. I do still believe, I think the old way of selling cars is still the right way. You can't get emotionally involved in a car until you drive it. I still think we need to create reasons and benefits in the mind of the customer for them to want to come to the dealership. And because really the alternative route is the internet. I mean, not that I don't mind that option, but I still think the communication still needs to take place at the dealership, even with COVID.
I think you gotta let the customer take the journey as far as they want to.
Right.
It's their journey. We just have to accommodate if they want to go end to end or if they just want to schedule an appointment after hello. I think that is a message that has to be resonated, through every touch point with the consumer, that we can go end to end or we can, take it to your house and show it to you at your door. I mean, I don't think dealers, at least around here, have never ever been more accommodating in pickup and drop off services and home test drives, home deliveries, remote signing, digitally. So I think you let the customer be in control of their journey and allow them, and we have to adapt to it, which gets to the point of training, which is why I keep going back to the same thing. None of this stuff happens when you have a rookie or somebody that can't walk and chew gum at the same time as the greeters. How many dealerships had greeters? That this model doesn't work. You need a professional salesperson to know how to get a customer to whatever point in the journey, and they have to be able to go along with them for the most part. You need a professional salesperson to be able to do the education, the justification of why over MSRP, sometimes significantly over MSRP, is still a good deal. I mean, that in itself, yeah, that's a professional salesperson doing the education and explanation instead of making somebody feel like they're being taken advantage of, understanding it's a supply and demand, and we are here to serve them. Unfortunately, the service is going to be at a higher price point than it was before, but it is, it's still, you need that professional not being arrogant that take it or leave it. You need that professional to be, explaining why you're still a valued customer, even if I couldn't earn your business today. I have many people saying, I'm not paying above MSRP. And I'm like, thank you. I appreciate you coming in. Unfortunately, we're going to have to, wait until this whole thing settles down a little bit, if that's truly what your buying habits are.
I just see kiosks
to
everywhere. Excuse me. I see kiosks at the airport. I see kiosks at Walmart. I see kiosks in the service drive. I fear for our salespeople.
I don't
Paul,
know.
you're cringing.
I don't know. I think Steve and I are a long way. We will be long gone by time the kiosk takes over in the sales staff. My opinion. I do know that there are headwinds in the industry, potentially direct sales of EVs, others coming out. I do know that these are headwinds, but I think we're a long way off of a complete shift in the business model and not needing a salesman. In fact, Sean mentioned tier four.
But we're
That's
going to
my
get into
marketing.
that. We're,
What's
we're
that?
gonna we're gonna lead into that
Okay.
question, right? Yeah. So with that said, now you mentioned you have to be a dealer that somebody wants to buy from, especially in an environment where first choice vehicles might not be available. I was looking for a Tiguan. I ended up going and getting a Subaru, and I got a really nice Forester. But Paul, you actually have Tier 4, which addresses that issue on some level. It's a brilliant platform, and it sort of makes you want to buy from the dealer and maybe make choices on vehicles that you might not, because that dealer, is well worth buying from. Explain Tier 4 for us. It's a great platform.
Well, tier four marketing is a simple concept. In the auto industry, you have tier one, two, and three is their dealer marketing. I brought tier four down. Tier four marketing is a marketing platform from the salesman's perspective at my dealership. And I believe in, I've always been relationship selling versus transactional selling, period. And to me, where's the relationship? The relationship is really with the Sean Kellys, the Reeds at the dealership, not so much at Sansone Jr.'s 66 Auto Mall or Rimrock Auto Group. It's hey, that guy Steve that I did business with, is Steve still there? It makes all the conversation a heck of a lot easier when it's a relationship versus, a transactional sale. So that is what was the motivation behind tier four. A is to help my salespeople earn more money. Be honest with you, I wanted to have my showroom, my average salesman, I wanted to get to 20 cars a month. My average salesman earn $100,000 a year. And before COVID, we were at 18 and a half cars and the average salesman making $90,000 a year. And in an industry that the average was 40 and change, I was pretty proud of that. Now those numbers are far surpassed because of the current situation. But the fact is, I wanted my salesmen to be the star under my umbrella. I wanted people coming in asking for Mark the pie guy, for the guys that I have at my dealership are in tune with branding themselves and being out there on social networking and having people coming in and asking for them. Now I'm the beneficiary of their success, so that's what tier four marketing is just, and again, then they take ownership of their own marketing. What do they want their brand to be? How do they want to go to market? I do support those guys. And it goes back to, is my handshake better than your handshake? If the handshake at my dealership is better than your handshake, now that gets to be a virtual handshake, is my experience online, which is the same thing at this point. Is my handshake better than yours is a very simple philosophy. And that's all I focused on, is to try to make my handshake or my virtual interaction better than the other dealer's experience.
Yeah, Paul, on the virtual transactions, we spent the last 2 years building NetDesker and co-browsing, which is called Finish the Deal. So if you got a family at 5 o'clock in the afternoon around their dining room table and they want to do a deal, my F&I manager, my used car manager, my salesperson, BDC person, no matter who they are, they can go online with the customer at the exact same time on that application and help them push the buttons and coach them right through it, just like they can do in the showroom.
That's great.
And I personally don't believe we're ever going to get rid of the salesperson. And I think you're always going to need a representative, just like Best Buy or any other place, that can coach you through the technology or coach you through the feature benefit illustration. And then also make a friend and then also have someone to come down and see on a regular basis. I do believe because technology's there that they can go from 18 to 22 cars or 23 cars a month.
I
It's
agree.
just quicker, better, faster. You don't have to spend 3 hours with them. You can do it in an hour and a half now. So I think from that standpoint, it's really good. And NetDesker in WebBuy is really cool because you notice a desking tool is normally at a desk in a dealership, right? There's a really forward-thinking auto group guy out on the West Coast. I won't say his name, but he's moving all his desk managers and all his finance managers into one location out of 15 cities. Okay. So he's not going to have a desk manager or a finance manager on site anymore. He needs a tool that actually works off site. And NetDesker is a mobile desking tool. You can desk the deal anywhere. And then the salesperson's right there and they can co-browse with the customer and see exactly what they're doing, punch by punch. And I think that was really cool. And then they're also doing electronic contracting with these stores. So they get all the information back. The desk manager cleans it up. It goes to finance. They clean it up and then they shoot the package off to the customer at the dealership. And they just click, 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 click. So that's big thinking. That's savings and utilization. The reason why the dealer is doing it is because he's having a very difficult time in Silicon Valley and other places to find people that can actually be a good desk manager. And he's going to other markets that there's more of available. So that's where the market's going. That's a lot of cool trends there.
Well, you brought up again, it's adapting to this whole thing, is about adopting change, recognizing what change feels comfortable. This, we are in the sea of change. And I think the dealers that are going to fare better than others are the ones that embrace the change. Be okay if I fail at something, try something. If it doesn't work, is fine. But we're going to have to continually be tweaking, our processes in order to make it work for the consumer end of this.
Well, I know the car motivator guys, you're having to look at a lot of technology now and sort it out, right? And then make your suggestions to the dealer, right? So it's the same thing. You got to be on the cutting edge. And one of the things I've always prided myself on, the reason I grew very well from a salesperson on up, is that I was always looking, no matter what anybody had, I at least looked at it and saw if there was anything there. Then I also looked to the vendor. If there was a good vendor behind the product that I could be counseled by on a regular basis, like car motivators, that's what I really trusted that individual. And then I always shop for the best technology. And so I was always one step ahead of the rest of the guys. And that's probably the reason why I got into WebBuy. Was 10 years ago, there wasn't anything there. And I said, we need to fill this void.
But if you think about it, in all these conversations, a salesman is still, in my vision of the future. Their roles are changing. But I agree with Steve completely. I think people want to have a relationship with somebody when they're buying a very expensive automobile. So I don't see the salesman leaving our business model for a very long time.
I just find, like, if you look at CarMax, for example, do you feel like they build the relationship with the customer?
I bought a car at CarMax. I did that I was up to Auto Fair up in the New Hampshire area. And the Honda general manager said, these guys are just bugging me. And Andy Cruz at that time said, I hate CarMax. He bought all the land around all his dealerships, so CarMax couldn't come into town. I mean, that's how bad he hated them. But they finally did get a little 3-acre spot, had about 200 cars on there. And I said, I better go in there and just check it out. It was a brand new CarMax. And there was a musician with a couple of earrings on and some khaki shorts. And I came in, we sat down at the table. There's nobody to greet us to speak of. Nobody was out on the lot or anything. Yeah. And there was no sales manager watching from the desktop period. And we just went and clicked through the digital retailing tool that they've got. And it was okay, but it did work, and it did finance me. They sent it out to 5 lenders, and CarMax financed it themselves. And then they did present a service contract. Their take rate is 60-70% on service contracts with salespeople selling it. There's just a finance person that comes in, assistant, that brings out the paperwork and they assign. So they've done a really good job on keeping it simple, no negotiations. You want it or don't. I do think that the person there was very helpful. They had about 300 cars on the lot. None of them matched what I was looking for. So they reached out to 5,000 cars to the closest CarMaxes there. And they told you exactly how many hours it would take or days that they could get the car to the location and deliver you. So I thought, that is one of our competitors. How about Carvana? That is one of our competitors now. Vroom is one of our competitors, right? Shift is one of our competitors. So I've done a deal now with Spin Car, which is now called Impel, where I package up the two products so you can spin the car inside and out, just like Carvana, inside WebBuy. Okay. Plus, I've got the feature tour in there. So the feature benefit illustration of every make and model year is inside my WebBuy product now, too, as well as being on the website. So now you're really slowing that customer down that's digitally trying to look into your car buying experience, right? So we're not giving up anything from a technology standpoint to Carvana or anybody else. So those are the things that are really happening right now, and it's really cool stuff. But we have to be aware of CarMax, Carvana. Those they're trying to steal our used car deals every day. And of course, Tesla. I went into a place in Boston up there next to this Prudential shopping center, and I bought a Tesla there. I wanted to see how that was. So I wanted to take back whatever they had the best in their digital retailing process and put it into WebBuy. And they had salespeople there. Carvana, I don't know, maybe knows this, but there's 8,500 salespeople and humans in their organization. So it's not like they digitally sell all their cars and have no human cost. That's not the case at all. Their product actually is terrible compared to WebBuy as far as how many humans have to pop up in the process. So back to that.
Kelly, I'd like to speak to, the one thing that I love about both Paul and Steve, they both have in common is like they're adapting ahead. They're driving the changes instead of waiting for the change to be forced on them. I think that's probably just in today's current market is a dealership's biggest threat is complacency, because there is a lot of success. And I actually, I recently, just last week, I was coaching with a dealer principal and his GM and his GSM. And they were talking about how successful they are right now. And I said, well, how are you judging success? And after a little coaching convo, they realized they were measuring their success, comparatively speaking, to how they were pre-inventory shortage, market. And we started looking at things a little differently. And we started judging success on a curve within each department. And what we saw was that, you still have underperformers. Just because someone's at $4,000 a car, PVR front and back, or $4,000 on the front, doesn't mean they're not underperforming in relation to their peers. So I think, we got to avoid complacency. We have to identify, what technology we need to learn and better adopt. And just like Steve and Paul are talking about, whether it's tier 4 marketing, or whether it's the digital retailing tool sort of thing that Steve's implementing, or whether it's driving behavioral changes, right? And making sure our employees and our managers are adopting the right skills. But resting on your laurels and just, taking a play off right now is not a good idea, because it's not if, but when the market changes and, even more or shifts another way. And I think the dealers that are prepared for that are the ones that are driving change now, like Paul and Steve are.
Well, the day of reckoning is coming. It's not today. And I'll tell you why. The biggest thing is, everyone thinks they're worth what they're making. I don't care. I've had managers I've made $500,000 a year, and they actually think they're worth $500,000 a year. And unfortunately, when you have somebody that the job used to pay $150,000 a year that's now earning $250 a year, well, the day of reckoning is going to come where that position is going to pay back to somewhere around that 150-ish range. And my message is consistent. Pay every bill off you have. We're not as good as we think we are. Put money aside for a rainy day, because unless you've changed your position in life, your position fundamentally is this range. Now, if you're earning that times 150%, God bless you. Enjoy it now. And the same with my salesman. That's the day of reckoning when, like I said, my average salesman's now well into the mid 6 figures average. So I have guys in the mid 200s, that's my average, is well into the mid 6 figures and over 20 cars a month. And eventually that's going to change, because the market will normalize somewhere between where we were and, where we are. But That to me that's my scary day because everyone thinks they're worth what they're making. I'm whatever. I'm Mr. Wonderful today. Who the hell knows what we're gonna look like a few years from now. But at least I know it going in. I'm not as good as I look right now. I mean, in business at least, and we go from there.
Yeah,
But that to me is you talk about the mentality, the psychology of what's going on. That day of reckoning is going to be tough. There's going to be turnover. There's going to be dealers that are going to say, I can't afford to pay you what you were making because you're not generating the amount of gross you were making. Somewhere along the line, that message gets lost. Hey, I was making 20 grand a month. Why am I not making 20 grand a month? That to me is my scary day of reckoning down the road because, but I'm trying to prep my people every time we talk. I'm like, be reasonable, financially at this stage.
Yeah. And it's been easy to make big money on car deals because the used cars have been up 30, 40%, right? The people come in with their trade, they're normally 5 grand buried. They actually got 5 grand in equity, right? Some of this bigger stuff, it's 20 grand in equity versus 20 grand buried, right? So there's a lot of people that got into the market. And then think about all those trillions of dollars that was handed out to everybody at $1,200 a piece for each kid and all that stuff. And that allowed them to have the down payment money to get into a lot of these deals. So, and that's allowed us to have big grosses in these deals. Instead of 3 grand a copy, we're at 6 grand a copy, right? So there's all that plays into it, but at some point in time, that's going to unwind, and the car's going to come back down to, even market, and we're going to go to the auction and lose 20 grand instead of make 20 grand, right? So there's going to be a lot of change. Interest rates are going up also, that's going to make it more difficult to get the payment right for us. And then we got to start paying more in floor plan. Maybe they put cars back out on our lots someday, Paul, and we actually have to pay that number, right?
Well,
Go ahead, Paul.
no, I was just going to say the other area that I do that I've been focusing on is, I've always been big on going where the money is. And for me, the money has always been in the subprime market. There's certain areas where I try to be very, very good at. And like I said, if you're going to expend X amount of effort, it might as well go to where the best result is going to be. And to me, we've developed a whole subprime business, financing model where I've created my own subprime finance company that not only allows you to capture subprime deals, but actually helps the customer rehabilitate their credit. So I feel while it's very profitable for myself and the dealers that we're bringing this to, it's not only profitable for myself, we're serving the customer benefit because we are helping customers transition from subprime borrowers to near prime borrowers. And, it is a business model that's taking a little bit of time to develop, but you talk about, you're doing great now. How do we plan for the future? You're going to have other silos of profit centers that are going to supplement some of the natural decreases that we are going to be seeing in this market.
Well, I think that's where car dealers are kind of going to that too. There's WebBuy is owned by 10 auto groups across the country. And I see, dealers investing more into IT. So less in brick and mortar and more into the IT, just like Paul's doing with his tier 4. I'm doing it with WebBuy. There's a guy that's doing titling over in the Ohio area. There's just a lot of dealers jumping into the tech piece because that's kind of where everything's, if you think about it, I got probably 20 IT deals that I have to deal with at the dealership level. Between the websites, the digital retailing, all the CRM, everything's digital, and you better know it. And so a lot of people are getting very good at it, and they're building their own products. I got a guy up at a Ford store in Ohio also that's building his own product right now. So it's really cool to see. So I just see a lot more of that going on also. Quicker, better, faster.
Paul, I don't think that I understand tier 4 marketing as it's the website that you create. I don't think you explained exactly what it does for the salesperson.
All right. Again, I just took the approach that we've been telling our salesmen all along, you're a business in a business. What business doesn't have their own website? So my salespeople have their own, website? What business doesn't market? So my salespeople have, some Facebook marketing budget so that they can build their brand. So it was basically taking what tools we have at a dealership level and expanding it to the salesman. I mean, the most common thing is, who doesn't have their own, what business doesn't have a website, what business doesn't market, boom. What business doesn't use social network, social media today? I mean, when I started this 7, 8 years ago, I was, social media, that doesn't sell cars. I mean, what successful person is not out there in social media, whether it's changed from Facebook to Instagram to TikTok, whatever, it's still social media. But that's what I've been instilling in my people is, using social selling, having them a place to ask their customers to go to, for their reviews and everything else. That again, it's that personal development. And again, some of it is paid marketing through Facebook, which on the salesman level is very inexpensive. If I invest $100 or $200 in a salesman, I feel I get significantly more bang for my buck than spending a $2,000 whatever at the dealership level. I mean, the salesman's bought into it. The salesman feels empowered. The salesman's involved in his little creation. Having an engaged employee is exciting, and I love seeing people grow with that stuff.
Well, I've been at 55 stores and I never saw something as cool as that. I like that.
Well, thank you. And even like if you have any ethnic marketing, I have the Hispanic marketing. I mean, whether to me, it goes back to relationship selling. Everyone wants to deal with someone they know. Everyone wants a friend in the car business. Everyone wants a friend in the jewelry business. Who wants to go to a jewelry store and meet Bob Jones for the first time and feel comfortable? Doesn't happen. I mean, it's true. It doesn't happen. Who do you know in the jewelry business? My son wants to buy a ring. Who do you know in the jewelry business? Which obviously just happened for me. But the fact is, that's why relationships are so important in our industry.
Yeah, and I think there's like systems that all work together, right? Like you've got your digital retail with your personnel that understand it and how it works. You've got your tier 4 marketing, you've got your dealer controlled leasing. And when you put all those things together, you're selling customers that other dealers, your competitors can't. You're creating better experiences. You're with Paul's dealer control leasing, they've got this, I love the credit repair coach. Every customer gets their own credit repair coach. So they're rebuilding their credit at the same time. It allows them to actually refinance or trade out of their car in 18 months. And I've seen that. And then you're speaking to the Hispanic community that's really pertinent in your demographic, in your market. And it's pretty powerful stuff, man. I think that's where you guys as dealers are really innovating, Steve and Paul. I'll let Kelly ask the next question.
Well, we have visionaries on board here, and I brought Steve and Paul on, and our boys from Car Motivators, Sean and Reed, for a reason. We're gonna use our crystal balls here. Another elephant in the room, maybe about to enter the room, is the prospect of manufacturer direct sales, which appears to be on the horizon as laws change and are being introduced into various states. I believe up to 13 states now. Some estimate as many as 30 to 40% of new EV car sales will be via the manufacturer direct online. Now, how does a dealer leverage that model to their benefit when the day of reckoning arrives, per Paul?
To be honest with you, I do feel it is down the road. I'm just going to be as good as I can for as long as I can and adapt to changes as I see fit. I do have I'm second generation car business. I do have a third generation. So we do talk all the time. I think it is more in their future, what how these things will evolve. But in some configuration, we are still going to have a franchise business model. I do feel you either get bigger, go big or go home. I do feel there will be some of that you got to be fortifying your footprint, either make what you have significantly better, expand what you have, expand the business models like dealer controlled leasing, like web buy that Steve alluded to. You're going to have to be multi talented, diverse, or take a Paragon Honda, or just be flat out the best in the industry by far with, basically two brands that, he's making as much as 10 dealerships combined because he's just focused on got the market. He's just focused on his brand. So you got to be bigger, better than the rest. But I still think we're going to be around. I don't have a fear that, we are going to be extinct. I may be extinct, but I don't have a fear that the auto industry.
You look like you're going hard to about 110, so, but anyway, you're going to be sliding it home and knocking over the catcher. I know how you are. So,
those New Jerseyers.
Now think about this. This is a couple things I've seen in the marketplace. I went down to North Carolina for a car convention down there, putting web buy in there and stuff. But they started with a 15-minute show on the big boards, and it was really awesome. It was about North Carolina dealers can handle the EV sale. In other words, they're promoting their state is the best way, and their franchise system is the best way to sell an EV vehicle. Okay. They weren't getting pissed off because they were trying to go around them or anything. They were going right at the manufacturer and saying, hey, why go around us? We're the best guys to do it. I really believed if Tesla would have gone out and given Paul Sansone and myself an actual franchise, right, in our marketplace, we would have sold 2 million vehicles for them last year, not 1 million, So they're missing the boat by not having we have the communities, we have the facilities. So I've got a facility that I built a little while ago. I was thinking about putting a BMW store in there next to my Mercedes, and it's 2 acres and about 20,000 square feet. Well, you know who made an offer on it? Tesla. They're having to spend a lot of money, to put these physical facilities there, and they can't sell a car in Montana, right? They got to do it digitally, but they do need to service cars. So why spend all that money? Elon doesn't need to spend money on physical facilities. We're stupid enough to do it for him, right? We buy the cars before they even get there. And then he can jam an extra 50 cars out the door on us and we'll buy them, right? So why don't they use the franchise system instead of going around it? We've done a great job on CSI, great job on upgrading all our facilities. We do a great job in general. So I really think that the manufacturers, Jim Farley and all these different people, where they're saying they're going to try to offload these things digitally, it comes back to you need a salesperson. You need a human.
If you think about it,
you need to drive it.
The perception of the car dealership really has, in my opinion, has changed. I know internally you find far less dealers are not doing things the right way. Now, many dealers are great businessmen, great community leaders, care about their customers, care about their facilities. And again, I think the car industry has a rep that maybe it earned, for years past, but I certainly think the car dealer of today, I agree with Steve 100%. The car dealer of today is an asset to the retail environment. While we don't have control of, it's above my pay grade making decisions like that. The fact is, I think the more that we embrace what you said and be good, show them why we're good. I think the less they're going to be inclined to try to cut us out of the mix.
I think Mike Alford, who's got a place just down the street from me here in Big Sky, Montana, he's a North Carolina dealer, Chevy dealer, and he's our new president or new chairman of NADA, right? That needs to be the pitch. There's 2 things that are going on here right now. One is the manufacturers trying to force their digital retailing products on the dealers, and they're half baked and they got issues. And they're trying to get their message out enterprise wide on their 2,575 Chrysler stores or their 4,000 General Motors stores or their 2,000 Nissan stores. Well, it's okay to have a marketing campaign to call it Shop, Click, and Drive or eShop or whatever, but to force a tool that doesn't really work that well on a dealer and make them not have dealer choice. We should have dealer choice, and it should be dealer centric, and it should be dealer enterprise wide, right? Because if you have 15 different stores brands, you got 15 different products, right, that you have to manage. And wouldn't it be nice to have one like your CRM or one like your DMS? So I'm really kind of going after that right now. I think it should be do the best of both worlds. Take what the manufacturer's trying to accomplish, right? They want control of that data, right? Which is no problem. We don't mind them having data. They're helping us sell a car, right? We should be working together on that. They want to get us to have everything electrified at our stores. Let's get it done. We need to get those electrification tools on our property and take care of those customers. There are going to be more of those customers as we go than they are currently right now. So we need to get ready for all that, and be willing to do that and willing to do the investment. And that way they don't go around us, number one, but more importantly, the customer's going to have a better experience. Every time they try to do these things, digitally, are they really getting a good experience? Someone just dropped off a Tesla the other day. And it was a $10 an hour guy dropped off the car and the keys. Guy goes, how do I learn about it? Look in the glove box, and then that's the type of experience they're getting a lot of times.
Steve, were you at NADA this year?
I was, yes.
What I noticed at NADA was consolidation of vendors. It was amazing. I mean, there was just like far fewer vendors, much bigger consolidation. An equity mining tool building itself into a CRM building an equity mining tool in, because us dealers, we have 15 portals that we're logging into. So when you said trying to use the manufacturer's widget, I couldn't agree more that it's that part that's going to keep consolidating because you're just going to have bigger vendors with more integration between all these different platforms. But that's what I noticed at NADA. It was consolidation.
I was thinking like back to the CarMax situation. Was CarMax successful because the customer chose to do business that way? Or was it CarMax was successful because they put out the right message? I mean, or by their process.
I think people like the way they do it. There's a lot of people, friends that I know. I wouldn't say it's the whole market, but it's a fair amount of people. They know they're not going to get any pressure. They're going to get one price, and they can get in and out in a quick amount of time.
And they sell 500,000 used cars in a year with 100 rooftops. Where AutoNation, their second closest competitor, that doesn't offer the same process, sells half of that unit with 215 locations. Right.
That's correct. That's right. Yeah. It's good. It's a perfect point. I think consolidation of auto groups, you can see that happening in a huge way right now. So, and I think consolidation of IT companies, because Techion's coming out with an idea that I had about 15 years ago is, have one platform for, touching the customer, coming into the showroom, finishing out the deal, going back in service and parts, your equity mining tools and all those things, right? And put it into one seamless process. That's ideally great. But the problem is that you have to be really good at each one of those categories, right? And they're not right now. They're trying to be that, but it takes a long time. I'm telling you, it's taken me 10 years to get the idea and bake the product. My product's finally baked. Up to before, there's a lot of holes in it, had all sorts of issues. And if you go look in most software, that's what they've got. They're halfway baked or a quarter baked. They're trying to get there. And then normally there's 3 CRMs that actually make it: Vin Solutions, eLeads, Drive Centric now, and Dealer Socket, right? Out of the 25 or 30 CRM companies that came out originally, if you look 10, 15 years ago, it always boils down to 2 or 3 that are really, really good at what they do. And same thing with, website providers. You got 4 or 5 that are out of 20 that started, and it boils down to those. And normally they get bought by Cox or whoever, and they consolidate everything and try to give a better experience. So Techion's trying to be something for everybody. And it's very tough to have a good CRM and a good digital retailing tool that's best of class, right? And to still try to build it from the ground up. It just takes time to do all that.
So I gotta get a web buy presentation, Steve.
I need to too. I want to see this web buy.
Yeah, it's nice.
I want to see this.
Steve,
I'm excited.
With all that said, Steve's got 5 EV prototypes in his backyard. And it's going to be the first affordable EV
That's awesome.
on the road. for
We get Paul
everybody.
to finance them though.
Yeah, right. And that's the thing. Everyone's chasing, limited market because they're so damn expensive. I personally think that it's going to be all EV. I think relative, if we keep going in the direction we're going, I think there might be a couple delays if we have a different administration in office. We maybe kind of delay that, but eventually it's going to go all EV. Gentlemen, I'm going to, this is our last question. I referenced crystal balls earlier, and this is for everybody. What will successful dealers be doing 5 years from now? It's kind of broad. I think there will be enough changes, at our doorstep in 5 years that you should probably have a strategy at this point. Comes fast.
Steve, you start.
So what
He's got
will
the EVs in the backyard. I already told you. Go ahead, Steve.
there'll be you're going to have a market penetration of maybe 25% EVs by then, something like that, so you're going to definitely have to gear your dealership to the EV sale. And I think it's really important that as associations across the country here, that we go to Detroit and wherever the manufacturer's at and get them on board with us to take care of it. Digitally, you have to have a digital retail program so that you can communicate and do a deal digitally and allow that customer to take whatever path they want. Start at home, finish in the showroom, start in the showroom, finish at home. We got to think outside the box a little bit more and make sure there's a tool there that can actually do that. So as far as my employees and stuff, CSI, man, you got the manufacturers are hawks on that, and you just need to be really good at that. And that's what really grows your business internally with your employee satisfaction as well as customer satisfaction. So those are a couple takeaways I got.
And digital retailing for me, agree 150%. And I've always been an employee guy. I believe if you don't have a satisfied employee base, then you're not going to have satisfied customers. And I always, I'm in a 20 group. We always rank very high in productivity, which obviously allows, it makes it a profitable business, but also I just believe focusing on the employee is going to be very, very important. And again, have the same faces there. How I've never understood how you can have a successful long-term business when dealers have such high turnover in the front and the back end. And in car motivators credit, a lot of the things that have employees leave are the warm and fuzzy things that many dealers don't pay attention to. And to Sean and his crew's credit, they really allow a salesman, a good person, not just salesman, writer, doesn't matter. Technicians, we have involved in technicians, but they allow a good employee the opportunity to not make a mountain out of a molehill, to solve a problem before it's really a big problem. So I really think being in touch with your employees is so critical to your business's long-term success. It's nice coming in and knowing who's at your place of business and that they care about your customers as much as you do. That just doesn't happen by hiring somebody with a smile.
No, what always happens, Paul, to your point, is that balls get dropped when you have turnover, and it's hard to train everybody up. It takes a while to see what they really are and see if they actually care, So you got 10 applicants, you probably only got 2 or 3 in the bunch that care. And then you got to get them to stick and keep them there for a long period of time so you don't have to retrain. And I just tell you, you lose money in so many different ways with turnover. It just piles out the door in every different direction. And so
my whole thing is you can't hire nice and you can't hire desire. Either they come to the plate that they're a nice person, they open up the door, they help the other salesman put the plates on the car. There is nice or not. You can't hire if you don't have that in you. I don't hire if you're not nice and you don't have desire, you're not going to make it in at least my place of business.
Go ahead, Reed. You take it next.
As far as what I feel dealers should be doing successful in the next 4 years, again, I love the change, and I think that if anybody, provides that message, it's the CarMaxes, it's the Carvanas, it's the the Vrooms and stuff. It's they're providing a message to the customer that they want to hear. they don't want to come to the place where they have the most, where they find it to be aggravating. They want to come there and they want to go to the grocery store to buy milk, not have anybody get in the way of doing that. Clearly, CarMax has showed that. I work for Coons Automotive in the East Coast, the second most aggressive market in the country, you know, and they share that same message. One price store in their, not just used cars like CarMax, but they're the top 10 in new car gross per rooftop and top in volume in the country too. And because they offer that message of, you know, we're not going to sit here and we're one price type situation. So I think that, you know, again, like to Paul and both to Steve, Paul, great. I love the fact that you focus on your employee. I think that, you know, how you treat your employees, how they're going to treat your customers. So hats off to whatever dealer's doing that. And also to your point, Steve, of offering that web buy option. I think, yes, like Paul said earlier, they should have the option to purchase that way, because that's kind of like how I want to do it. But I can't find it that way. I get the whole, you know, the same old way, unless I would to go to Vroom or CarMax. I have to deal with the process of what I grew up in from being in the car business for 23 years. So I think that anybody that's changing from the way that we've done business for the past 100 years and adapting to the current climate, clearly COVID showed us things can change quickly. I think that's what dealers should be doing to be successful in the next 4 years. And hiring Sean and myself to help.
Well, that goes without saying.
Develop the people.
Well, I will say that I love the crystal ball question, because, and this is a discussion I was just having with the dealer last week, which, you know, it's like, what's your vision for success? What does that vision of your dealership look like? And how are you, you know, getting your team aligned to it? A dealer we coach in Northern California is actually, you know, shared the vision for the EV program for her independent store. And it's been cool because that led to a whole plan for developing her technicians, setting up the electric, what do you guys call them? The charging stations for the electric vehicles, and then the sales team learning to be able to sell those things. You know, so I think you're definitely going to see, you know, 4 or 5 years from now, you're going to see the most successful dealers are going to be servicing and selling EVs consistently. I think, like to Paul's point earlier, it's a relational business. It's still the people business, you know, which means service retention and sales employee retention comes with sales retention. So I think you want to do everything in your power to drive service and sales and employee retention. And then I think the days of just the desk manager whose only job is to, you know, says right now only and hands the worksheet, you know, the pencil to the salespeople is over. I think you're going to see 5 years from now, you will, especially if we have our way, you're going to see a much more skilled sales leader, someone who can effectively recruit, retain, create engaged employees. And as a result, you're going to see a more skilled workforce. I think you're going to have, maybe higher paid team members and managers, but also they're going to have the skills that back that up. So I think that's the direction. And I think you're going to have a way with the software consolidation and efficiencies that come with things like AI, you're going to have a flexible buying process, but one that scales well. So I think it's going to be pretty cool throughout. I think it's a bright future for the auto industry and for people that have dealerships now.
Anything else, gentlemen? Reed? Paul?
Yes,
Steve?
sir.
Hey, thank you, Kelly, for having us on. This has been very enlightening, number one. Got to meet some new friends, number two. And I think we learned something today. So it's good.
Enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.